You know, there's nothing like a good old incident with a Karen to get you headfirst into a career of MMA. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. But 23, 24 years in the making, I'm enjoying this sort of renaissance that series are having, where they're like, hey, people who were in the original are still alive, the director is still alive, the creator is still alive. Let's do this again. Let's bring this all back. And so we get The Best Man, the final chapters, the sequel series to The Best Man from 1999. And The Best Man Holiday from 2013. Both of those, if you haven't, if you are a Black person, specifically the first one, are staples of the Black community. The Best Man Holiday caught me off guard. I had gone through some things and lost a mother around the holidays to cancer. So then the film, if you've seen The Best Man Holiday, you can see how that had a tremendous effect on me. And so here we are again with another comedy / drama. Bringing up all our favorite characters back again and evolve to see what they would be like in the new world, in the 2022 era of the world. And I think all in all, they do a really good job. Like this feels like what the subsequent sequel would be of The Best Man. I think the only difference is instead of getting just 2 hours to spend with these, you get a total of 8, which is a fun time. And you get to delve even a little deeper into some characters that you probably would not have had time to do had this just been a film. I think the biggest proponent of that is the ladies of the Best Men series get a lot more time to shine. Typically, these have all been a male, focusing on Harper and Lance and those guys, Quentin and those guys. But this time, we sort of spent a little bit of time to kind of divvy up the plans and give a little bit more insight into the women, which I think helps the series as a whole. And sort of, there isn't really a villain in this, where I think sometimes where you're watching The Best Man Holiday from the men's perspective, the women come off sometimes as the villains. This does a good job of balancing both sides, where everybody's wrong. Everybody's got some mess. Everybody's got life. They're adulting and everybody's life is changing. They're sort of orbiting around each other as they grow up and adult. The first 2 episodes of this show act sort of like an epilogue to The Best Man Holiday and a prologue to what we're going to get in for the rest of the season. It almost acts like a mini movie and self-contained almost, where it's a holiday film. It's a wedding, travel wedding. What do you call those? Destination weddings. It's a destination wedding for Quentin and his new bride to be. I'm not saying her name, but it's played amazingly by Nicole Ari Parker. So the whole crew kind of absconds upon this island to be there for Quentin. So you got again Harper being the best man, much to the chagrin of Murch. You got Quentin being his thing. He's head over heels with this new woman, but more so for his dad, what's happening with the hotels and everything. And you've got started putting seeds of what's going to be happening with the prologue. The biggest thing that is happening as an epilogue is that Lance is still suffering from the loss of Mia, and he's just banging anything that walks. Anything that moves, he's banging it until he falls head over heels for this hotel concierge, who kind of Jasmine, who sort of starts getting him out of the muck a little bit and starts making him get to a point where he actually cares about someone. She happens to be engaged and about to get married, as he finds out, but it helps him get out of that rut. And then, lo and behold, we get Shelby arrives to the village, and she's not really she wasn't invited, she wasn't supposed to be there, but you know that is Quentin's, like, as the movies have played, her his arch enemies, but also somebody that he has come to truly love. And he hates her, but he loves her. It's that person that's his ride or die, and he can't get away from her. And so when it all comes down to it, he eventually does decide to go with her, and that sort of sets off what the rest of the series is going to be. In that, we also see that Harper is trying to find more out of life. He's got a movie deal on the side for his first book, which gets a little bit messy. He wants to get everybody's sort of blessing for that, because the book that was about the best man and the book that started it all, when they bang Mia and all that stuff. But he's trying to do something more. He wants more out of life. But also his wife, Robin, is kind of finding her purpose. And I think what we see as the series goes along, this sort of how this plays throughout the entire series, is that Robin and Harper are at this point in their life where she feels that she spent the majority of her life being the backbone for Harper. and he's always been selfish. And we've learned that throughout the entire film series and this series as well. That Harper can be selfish. He's a good guy. He's a good man. But over and all, he always does what's best for him first versus what everybody else is. In this marriage, he's a good father and he's done what's best for him and what's best for what he believes to be the family. But unfortunately, he's done so at the chagrin and damage to his wife, who's trying to find her place. It's interesting, as the series went along, I was siding with Harper 100%. And I was like, oh, Robin's being a little bit messy. She's flirting with this food dude. She's kind of getting in. But all in all, they end up on even keels because Harper does sort of makes a mistake and he kisses Jordan again, somebody that he's always loved. And that's somebody that Robin has always sort of had to be protective of. But he doesn't tell her. He doesn't tell anybody that. He doesn't tell Shelby and the crew they're sort of aware. They know the timing works out, but that doesn't come out. And through therapy, through stuff, there seems to be a moment where they actually try to make it work. And Harper shows up. She shows up for Harper's premiere, and he shows up for her gala for her fundraiser. And it seems like they're back on the right track again. But then it just all sort of gets mucked up because as much as it always is, he's trying to do everything for his family to keep it together. The thought of the dollar signs and the thought of the movies always sort of take him over. It's the crazy thing, just as life goes on, people want more. They're like, I want to do more. I want to be more. Like this whole show has each character sort of going through their midlife crisis, if you will, to decide what's next in life. Jordan's a workaholic. She's working all the damn time and she needs something. She needs to get out of that. Otherwise, it's killing her. She's working to the point where she's putting her health at risk. She's losing her eyesight. She's going through stress. She needs to make a change there. Quentin and Shelby are actually pretty good for the most part, but he's done enough damage in his life that he starts having mild heart attacks. Shelby doesn't want to lose him, and they start kind of going at odds with that. I'm going to say this about Shelby. I would say she is probably, out of all the characters in this show, has had the most growth. She's the character who is most unlike what they were originally presented as. Everybody else is still basically being themselves, just with being a grown-up or more adult, having adult things thrown up in the mix. Shelby felt like the villain, or like the chaos that was always thrown into these movies. And now she's a fully fleshed character, and somebody that I care about her probably more than most people in here. She is there for her husband. She wanted this. Like the moment her lap dance was so funny and sexy and amazing and grown up, and I loved all of it, to the point where she has been that ride or die, and she's still funny. Like, even though she is still that little wild card, she's grown up, but she's still the funny one of the group. And I loved everything that she did with it. I think the Candy merch combo, they have moments that work for me. I don't know quite how I feel about the whole being affected by a Karen and then going to MMA. It just seems like that goes sort of off left. I get it in the fact that Merch has always felt like the guy who's always been beat up on, who's always felt like everybody's, even his own friends, the people that he thinks is supposed to have his back. The way that they see him, he finally gets to see when they put the film up on screen and he sees the trailer and he's like, oh, that's what they think of me. Puts even more anger into his heart. So I get how it comes, just plays off kind of like, oh, I guess, sure. I guess that's how it goes. He and Candy have still a solid relationship. When they get high, it's a fun time. The whole F them kids sequence that happens, it's fantastic. I think what this show does well is take those characters and some of the things that they always do, except for Shelby, who I think, like I said, had the most growth. What they are, being Harper being selfish, Lance being sort of the alpha male, kind of pighead, Quentin being the suave dude, but finally kind of whipped into shape, if you will, by Shelby. I think they take all of those things and sort of bring them into the 2022. We've got the pandemic is a part of this, and so the way of loss of the pandemic and what they have had to do to kind of go around that. The idea of protest and what that has done to sort of galvanize Robin. All of those things sort of play into a part. The midlife crisis, like, am I doing what I want to do in life? This show has a great job of going from comedy to drama to comedy. And that's something that Best Man has always done and done well, especially with just to see that on screen with gorgeous Black people who have not cracked. They age like fine wine. Well done. But the biggest thing I think that people are going to kind of go one way or the other is the inclusion of Lance and the LGBTQ community and his child LJ and their coming to terms with being able to tell their father who they identify as and what it is they want to be. That is going to rub some men, I know, the wrong way, and that's just the way the world is. But it's funny. Nothing in this between the abuse that happens, sort of, it's a kind of it's Candy's piece about a Me Too movement. None of these things feel ham-fisted in. They all play a part into whatever the story is, and they're interwoven pretty well. It all comes together and gels well, and it's one of those perfect things that if you're a fan of The Best Man and The Best Man Holiday, you're going to be a fan of this. Like the writing, these characters, you spent your life 20 plus years with these folks. This feels like the perfect sort of payoff to it. And to a point, I don't really want this to be the end. I would like, not immediately, but like maybe in 10 to 15 years, whoever's still around, knock on wood, hopefully everybody is, but whoever's still around, let's revisit this and see where they're at that point in time. Because I think it is always sort of good to check in with these people, because I think everybody, all of us, sort of identify with one of the people that are in this story, and it sort of gives us a check in. I think sort of like to a lesser extent, because I don't think they take the drama as serious in that, but sort of like the American Pie series that comes back every 5 to 10 years. So it's like, hey, here's a reunion, here's a wedding, here's a funeral, like whatever. Let's sort of do that here, and I would love to come back to this, and I would love to do it in this form, because I think you get more meat on the bones when you do it in this story form. But Malcolm, pick your time, because I know writing these 8 episodes, they originally got a 10 episode order, and they did 8. That's because the story that he wanted to tell was able to be told in 8. I think he does an excellent job of doing so. I've got to say 2 scenes that stand out the most to me. The first is with the women. It's a simple scene. It's with our big 4, with Shelby, Jordan, Robin, and Candy. Sort of early on in the series when they're having sort of a book club, and they're all talking. They're saying things that are happening to them and about them and for their life, but doing so in a completely different way. And you sort of get the dynamics of all 4 of them in that. Like, it's the first time that in a while, we get to see all 4 of them in play, because Shelby usually is not a part of this. She usually is sort of on the outside. She's friends with Robin. So that's the first time you got to see them, and you see them all interact with each other and sort of get all their dynamics and how they understand each other. May not always agree with each other, but they are all there kind of together as a unit. The other, on the flip side of that, is for the guys, and happens sort of tail end of this after Harper has had sort of the world that he has known blown apart. I was already tearing up at that point. They do a great sequence of him going back to the house and kind of like having a breakdown moment with the music playing, and he falls into bed. So it's really well done. The scene after that, when he is in the home by himself watching TV, looking as depressed as we men can get, and his boys show up for him. As a guy who has 4 other friends, they have one more person than they do as a group. I get that feeling. I know that feeling. But no words have to be said. They're just going to be there for him. And I think that's amazing to have guys that you've been ride or die with for so long, that when they just know he's in pain, we need to be there for him. Even though Murch has had issues with Harp, he may not be quite there with him, because he feels like he's upset or he's hurt, but he's going to show up for his friend because his friend needs him right now. They all show up in the house doing a job that they handle. Like, Lance is there, like, yo, I'm gonna get the party started. We're gonna bring some cards. I'm gonna get the music going. Murch is like, I'll bring the food, and Quentin got the alcohol. But they all know their job, but they're all there to say, hey, Art, we got to dust you off and get you back on your feet. I think that's just an amazing scene, and kudos to showing men being vulnerable with each other, but also being men in the moment to say, hey, I got you, boy. We're gonna get you back up. We're gonna take care of you. My biggest piece that I love, as much as I think everybody has always sort of wanted Harper and Jordan to be together, like, that's been the key. I think this show as a whole kind of also says that, hey, perhaps you shouldn't rush into going into the love that looks like the best, that looks like that looks on the outside as if it is the one that people want for you the most, or maybe it looks the best on paper. It's like, hey, you should go with the one that feels like, this is my ride or die. This is my showpiece. This is my brother to the end, my soulmate. Everybody sort of felt that Jordan and Harper were always that. But I do love that in this, we don't get them together. Sure, it could happen. It could happen. Fate could put them back together. But I love that at the end of this, Jordan is busy trying to reclaim and figure out herself. She's doing some self care for herself. And Harper needs to heal. Like, he may have feelings. He may want to work and get to the point where he is with something with Jordan, but he has to work on whatever he just came out of with Robin. And so, as much as I think Harper and Jordan is going to perhaps work, we can all play that. Hopefully, we get that 10-year down the line look. I think it's a great look to say that they both have said that they love each other. They both have feelings for each other, but it's a little too messy to do that in the now. So let's just see where the world takes us. And I think that's the perfect way to put, instead of making it all neat and tied up, like, oh, they're back in love. It's real life. That's how it would end. That's how it should end. And no one is too messy because Robin is still friends with Jordan. I think it isn't too messy, even though Robin has always felt something with it was there. Jordan doesn't kind of just jump right in and just make a more mess of it. So I think that's a perfect way to sort of tie it all together and make it all work. All in all, I think this is a really good series. If you're a fan of like I said, the first two movies, you're going to watch this and you're going to burn through it quickly. I plan to do this in parts. I was going to do first two, then the next two, and the next two. And then I watched the first two and then I just burned through the rest. Like, it's a quick watch. You're going to be stuck all day because once they get you, it ain't letting you go. This is a big recommendation for me. What did you guys think of The Best Man, the final chapter? What are your thoughts and comments in the comments below? If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.